Why is a good business always a step one for wealth creation?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. I love that question. I think what a lot of business owners don't necessarily realize is it's the ticket for admission to the real game. It really is. So if you think about my story before with the share trading thing, like I would have been much easier if I had millions to trade. It was harder when I have a small amount or this and unable to contribute. The other components of that too is when you look at the vehicles that are out there, is there's a lot of competition for this bottom end stuff. There really is. So you end up getting worse deals as well. If you want to go into things like property, which is something we both do a lot of, like property is expensive. Like if you want to be able to do projects and things like that, like I did a subdivision at one point where I needed to come up with $100,000 of cash to complete the project. I would never have been able to do those things that would give me a significant uplift if I didn't have the good business to support it. And again, like such a powerful thing if you can get this right, such a powerful thing.
And you're right, because you can't take advantage of those effective strategies unless you've got the foundations. Right. And so similarly for myself, we bought an investment property just recently and it's currently going through renovations. But the reason that we can renovate it is because we had a great buyer's agent who bought below market price to factor in the renovations. And we negotiated out the renovations because we said these things are necessary. But then we've also got the cash reserves to do the renovations because in 6 months' time, we might refinance. Right. But because we've got the cash now, I can play those strategies. I can use those to my advantage, where if someone else wasn't in the position to go and utilize them, they'd be waiting for the house to potentially increase in value. And then they'll go, hey, let's do this small renovation. Let's do this renovation. Whilst I'm already banking the money for 6-12 months until they would have got to today or even longer in most people's situations.
I want to throw a couple of more examples in that just before we move on from this point, because I don't want this to be just about property because it applies to more things, but being able to cover things if things go down as well. Like if your business can float you through a duration while your investments have time to work, you can ride out storms in a much better way. Where if you don't have a good business and you fall into strife, you often have to sell things to take you down as well, which it hurts to sell things when they're potentially not performing well as well. Like that's a huge mistake. But one of the ones is like often, I won't say I cop flack because of my bias towards property, but someone will say to me, oh, crypto, right? You can buy crypto cheap. Like you don't need a superiorly great business to do that, right? You can go to the moon. I'll tell you right now, the people I know that do really well in crypto pay a fortune to be a part of masterminds, to go to conferences, to mingle with other people doing these things. And I look at it and go, if you take into the expenses of the access to the people in that network, regardless of how much you're spending on your investments in that space, if you are doing that, it's like suddenly this becomes an expensive sport.
Very expensive. But it's also the 1%ers.
Completely. And these are the people, again, getting the astronomical gains. And I won't name names, although they probably will listen to this podcast at some point. But the people a few of my friends that have done astronomically well in crypto in the last few years, like they are paying big money to be in the rooms to hear what the smartest people have to say about this. And I mean big money. Yeah. So I look at that and go, that's where if you've got a good business to support paying to be in those rooms, you're going to get a better return than the person who's out there just picking coins randomly on CoinSpot or whatever it is that they're using. And the same applies to shares, right? We'll say this before, it's like if it's on the news like BBC or it's in the newspaper and that's when you're getting in, you missed out.
It's too late.
There was a whole group of people that knew what was going on before that, and you want to be in that category. But that's not going to happen from following the tips out of the newspapers and things like that. I think it's a very, very interesting way of looking at things. So this is the whole encompassment of like the ticket to the real game. That business that can produce a good amount of profit gets you better opportunities and access in all the asset classes we're discussing here.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to go back to your story, I know someone who's had to sell their assets to prop up their business, and vice versa. They've had to extract out all the cash from their business to prop up assets that weren't doing too well, to the extent where they were buying blocks of land and selling them for 40% less than they bought them for just as a fire sale to help prop them up. And now 6 months later, they're going and actually buying blocks of land which have doubled in price again because they're in better footing. And I'm just like, what? Like that? I'm like, it seems crazy, but this is the difference of having that foundation of a business, right? Because you don't need to rob from the rich to give to the poor.
It's fundamentally a different game. And this is like, that saying, it takes money to make money. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Kind of does.
Oh, no, it does. It definitely does take money. Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all and you want to dive deeper into wealth creation, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the post right now.